Alright everyone, welcome back not just to the Let's Code dev series of our Megaman X platform, but also welcome to Amarok, the computer that I built in one of my previous episodes. And if you haven't seen that yet, I would highly suggest checking it out because we're no longer on the Nerd Boss. So if you hear any idling fans in the background, my apologies in advance, but you know, we're just going to have to deal with it. So in the previous episode, we have fired bigger lemons, and now it's time to get complex. In this episode, I would like to focus on doing an aiming system for Megaman X. Now, of course, I need to give a shout out to YouTube user Lone Hunter and his development series of the platformer Megaman X Elf Wars, where he introduces a concept of an aiming system for Megaman X using all the projectiles from just regular shots to charge shots, you name it. And today I would like to replicate not exactly what you see here in this footage, but moreover kind of just similar and yet slightly less complex / advanced and what have you. I have done this before in one of my previous builds, and I'm hoping that, given that I have a separate file of this exact project with some code ahead of time, it should be able to work out unless I missed anything important, and then if that's the case, my sincere futuristic apologies, whatever you want to call it. So, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we are going to do is go into our master controller for our player, and we're going to introduce a couple of new variables here. So, if just below here, I'm just going to just make a comment calling this aiming system variables. And then I'll try my best to explain this as I go, but can aim is set, we're going to set can aim to true. Angle is going to be set to 0. You're going to want a variable aim that's equal to 0, and vertical aim that's equal to 0. So can aim is self-explanatory. It's a true or false variable whether or not we can use the aiming system or not. If it's true, then we're able to use it, and if not, then we can't aim our X-Buster diagonal up, diagonal down, or straight. The only times that this would be false is when we're during a wall jump or trying to jump off of a wall back onto the ground, because I had some bugs in the past where I had some bugs where when I let go of the wall jump, I'm stuck in the side of the wall, and we'll maybe see that later today in case I mess it up, but you know, yeah. Anyway, so angle is for angle of projection. This will be variable depending on what sprite index we're using, if we're doing straight, if we're doing diagonal up, or if we're doing diagonal down for certain indexes. Aim is going to act and behave similarly to our move variable in our platformer, and that will also help adjust our direction of what the character is facing, and also where just for other cases for aiming and whatnot. And vertical aim is just for animating purposes only, just to help animate the player correctly with our sprite indexes and whatnot. So, yeah. Alright, so now from there we're going to go ahead and go into our step event, and then I'm going to put... looks like I've got already started here, but you know, it's between platformer coding and our animation handling controllers. Let's go ahead and get started here. So the first thing we need to do, of course, like our platformer, is we need to define some inputs. We're going to have 4 to work with here, and it should be obvious what they are. Is to aim left, right, up, and down. I'll make a quick disclaimer though that this aiming system will not deal with straight up shots, as you've probably seen in the footage not too long ago. It's just going to be for straight diagonal up, so like at a 35-degree angle, and then diagonal down at like -35. And then how GameMaker works its angle system, if positive numbers are in a counterclockwise fashion, whereas negative numbers are in a clockwise fashion, as seen in the diagram here. Alright, anyway, back to our inputs. So we're going to say key aim right is equal to keyboard check VK numpad 6. Alternatively, you could use another set like IKLJ or VK, or your arrow keys, which is VK right, left, up, and down for your up arrow, left, or your right arrow, left arrow, up arrow, and down arrow respectively. But for convenience, I'm using the number pad for this. With that in mind, we're also going to have key aim left is equal to keyboard check VK numpad 4. key aim up is equal to keyboard check VK numpad 8. Come on. And then key aim down is equal to keyboard check VK numpad 2. Alright. Now that we defined our inputs, of course, now we need to react to our inputs. So, in order for all this to work, we need to have the condition if we can aim. So this variable needs to be set to true, which is mostly set to true most of all times, except for the conditions I mentioned earlier. But really quick, below this, I'm going to type in a couple other things really quick. If move is not equal to 0, our image X scale is going to be equal to move. Else, if aim is not equal to 0, and our wall jump timer is also equal to 0, our image X, or not index, image X scale is going to be equal to aim. And also we're going to have another thing, or little statement for resetting our angle of projection. So if aim is equal to 0, and vertical aim is equal to 0, we're going to set angle equal to 0. So what these do really quick, if move is not equal to 0, basically meaning if we're moving to the right or if we're moving to the left, we're going to rely on our image X scale to be equal to whatever move is equal to. So if move is -1, we'll be facing to the left. If it's equal to 1, we'll be facing to the right. Otherwise, if we're standing still, and if our aiming variable, which I will have updated up here in just a minute here, so that's not equal to 0, and our wall jump timer is equal to 0. So if we're if we're standing still or falling from midair, we're not moving, we're just falling straight down, we're going to have the same image X scale relied on aim. And aim can only be either 1 or -1 because it behaves similarly to how move does, but we're just with different keys. So, and then down here, if we're not aiming anywhere and our vertical aim is 0, so that means we're not pressing any of these keys up here, we're going to have our angle set to 0. Anyway, got my momentum going. I'm actually awake this time. Alright, so back to this condition here, if we can aim. So here we're going to say aim is equal to negative key aim left plus key aim right. With this, when we hold one of these buttons down, we're going to have this variable, like for example, key aim right is going to be set to 1. Like I said, we need to have, we're relying on our aim to be like -1 or 1, so in order to accomplish that, we need to set one of these variables to negative. So if we're holding this one down, aim will be, or if we're holding the left, or the aim left key down, aim will be -1, and if we're holding the right key down, then it'll be 1. If we're holding them both down, then it'll be 0, and yeah, so but our image X scale will be whatever it was last before aim was set to 0. Anyway, and also similarly, we're going to do the same for vertical aim, having key down be negative, and then key up, aim up is going to be positive. And making a comment here saying that this is just for animation purposes only. Now in this controller, all we're doing is just assigning aiming angles. In our animate player script, that's where we will be assigning sprite indexes and going from there. So we're going to assign aiming. Here, hold on. There we go. Assign aiming angles. So if we are either pressing the aim left key or we are pressing the aim right key, by default we're just going to have straight bias shots here, with the angle being set to 0. So that's only if we're not pressing any of the vertical keys, the aim up or aim down. But for diagonal up biased shots. So when we're holding down one of these keys plus the aim up key here, if vertical aim is equal to 1, okay, and from here, this is where we assign our angles of projection. Unfortunately, I couldn't make a universal depending on no matter what our image X scale is set to, because the projectile wouldn't move in the correct direction. So unfortunately, we're going to define angles depending on our image X scale. I wish I could simplify the code, but if this is something you can do, go for it. But here's what I have. So if image X scale is equal to 1, and then just quickly right below it, we're also going to say if image X scale is equal to -1. Whoa, careful those invalid malformed if statements. Okay, so facing right and facing left, just for anybody that's confused here. Let's do this too really quick. Alright, so for this, for a few indexes, they all share the same angles, just the way that these sprites are visually animated. So from here, here's what I'm going to say. So if check index idle, or check index run, or check index jump, or check index land, we're going to set our angle to 35 degrees. Let's see, why assignment operator expected. Oh, I forgot to put my equal sign here. So as you remember, we created these the script check index and animate player for our animation handling controllers FSO, where basically all the script does is just check to see, given a specific case, if our sprite index is equal to anything inside these cases, and if that is so, it will return a 1 or true, and then the statement will end from there. So with that being said, if we are idling, if we are running, if we're jumping or landing, or maybe we're shooting at the same time, no matter what we do, our angle is going to be set to 35 degrees. However, it's different for our wall jump, because if you know, if our image X scale is 1, which means we're facing to the right, if you take a look at our sprite for wall jumps, for a minute it does face to the right, but then X is facing to the left, as you can see here. This would be if our image X scale was set to 1, but yet he's still facing to the left. So we need to do or set the angle opposite of what he should be facing. So what we need to do is quickly say if check index wall jump, our angle is going to be set to 180 degrees minus 35 degrees. So if you do the maths, that should be 145, which, as you can see from this diagram, should make him shoot to the left and up if he is facing to the wall to the right, or if he's on a wall, attached to a wall on the right. Now, with that being said, for when we're facing left, it's basically the polar opposite. So we can literally just copy and paste these, but we need to set the angle for these check indexes here. We need to set this to 180 minus 35, and then our wall jump here can be set to 35 degrees. And that should do it here for diagonal up bias shots. Now, similarly, we can do the same thing for diagonal down biased shots. So we'll do an else if statement here. So else if vertical aim is equal to -1. Okay, because you remember, if we're holding the aim down key, vertical aim will be set to -1 here. It's basically the same principle as here, but unfortunately all the angles of projection are not the same with each sprite index, as you'll visually see here in just a little bit. But we'll do the same checking if image X scale is equal to 1 or facing to the right. open and close curly braces, and really quick, if image x scales equal to -1, facing left, and I know I have a malformed if statement there. This just seems to be a habit of mine. My apologies. So for here, the angles are going to be different, and the only time we can aim diagonal down is if we're idling, jumping, or wall jumping. This does not apply for our running animations or in the future dashing and ducking. It's just for convenience. I mean, if you want me to, or if you want to go ahead and animate the player so where he has his cannon aiming downwards, by all means go ahead and do it. You just need to figure out what the angle of projection is when we edit our scripts later. So that being said, if check index idle, we're going to set our angle to be -30. Which, remember, if you set a negative angle, you'll be moving in a clockwise direction in the circumference of a circle. So, and really quick, I'm just going to copy and paste these 2 times here and 3 more times in our other other condition here. But we will be changing these here in just a minute. So, our second check indexes will be for jump, and our third will be for wall jump. And then here our angles for jumping is -35, and then for a wall jump it is 180 plus 40. So then similarly for facing left, our check index for idle is 180 plus 30. Our check index for jump is 180 plus 35, and then our wall jump angle is -40. I hope all of this is making sense so far, but you'll see what I mean when I launch the game here in a little bit. Okay. So, and that is all we need for our aiming controller here. So, now that we have this, unfortunately, we need to also rewrite our Firebuster script, because another bug I noticed in the previous episode is when you're doing a wall jump and you fire a charge shot, it moves in the correct direction, but it's facing the wrong way. So for aesthetical purposes, and also because we have this new aiming system under development, we need to completely rewrite our script. So, go into where your Firebuster script is located, and this is what we're going to do. First off, the number of arguments is going to change. First off, we're going to have the first argument we're going to be providing projectile, and the second being the case. So this will behave similar to our check index and our animate player whatsoever. And just so I have this as a note in the further, and just so you can see and understand, here's what the script is going to do. So this script is going to control all the projectile system of the X-Buster. It's going to handle all the cases of animating and aiming mechanics, so like all of our angles and whatnot. It's also going to assign the coordinates of where the projectile is located, the animation of what's supposed to be, and the angle of projection ahead of time. So, unfortunately, now, hate to do this, but we need to restart from scratch. But don't worry, I have this already written down on a notepad here, as you can see. So we can go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to do is just define some local projectile variables, and this is just going to save us the grit and grind of just consistently typing things of what I'm going to type here. So just give me a second here. Our free local variables are going to be var, or are going to be proj, a, and c. A is just basically going to be argument 0, which is what projectile we're saying this is, and this is defined. Wait, or this will already be defined in our X-Buster controller here. As you can, hold on one second. As you can see here, B is our local variable for what projectile we're going to be doing and whatsoever. It just makes it easier to not consistently type argument 0, argument 0, argument 0 when you can just simply type A, and whatnot. The same thing goes for the variable C, because this is also going to be equal to our player's image X scale, just to make things a heck of a lot easier and hopefully Nice and compact, nice and tidy, nice and neat. So, as our main controller here, and just for aesthetical purposes, this is something nice that I like to do. Keep my code organized. You can do whatever you want. So we're going to do, like our check index in our anime player, we are going to be doing a switch statement for our second argument, which is our case. Cases being idling, running, or jumping, landing, similar to what we did. What we did. So we're going to switch argument 1, and we're going to. And here we go. We're going to have a case of idle. And then, of course, always remember to break your statements so you don't loop into some other case on accident, because as you saw, that's kicked me in the butt a couple of times. So they're all similar. It just depends on what sprite indexes allow you to aim up and down and straight, because I mentioned before there's some cases where we won't be able to aim up and down and whatnot. So, excuse me. So that being said, we're going to start with our idle case. So if vertical aim is equal to 1, or basically our diagonal up, proj, which is our local variable we define up here, is going to be equal to instance create x plus c times 11 pixels to the right or left depending on our image x scale, y plus 3 a. A being our argument 0, which is our projectile, which we'll have taken care of. And this is going to be rinse and repeat for all of our, like any other conditions and other cases, so it should be self-explanatory from here on out. But we're going to be doing an else-if statement for when vertical aim is equal to -1 or we're aiming diagonally down. The same thing. Pro should instead is going to be equal to instance create x plus c times 8, because depending on where the buster is pointed at, the coordinates change. They're not consistent in a sense. When you're developing the game and you're working with these indexes, you can experiment with these values here to make the projectile launch at the correct position. So that's why these need to be specific number, or my specific numbers here. So y plus 20, and then of course a again, and then else for a straight shot. So like if it's vertical aim is 0 instead, we're just gonna have proj equal to instance create x plus c times 16, y plus 12, and a. If c is equal to 1, proj direction is equal to 0. Else proj direction is equal to 180 degrees. If you remember in our projectile code, we have it to where the motion would be set to the direction and the speed depending on how fast the projectile can move. We're not using x plus a specific number of pixels times our image x scale just because of our new aiming system here. We need to rely on different angles whatsoever. And then we're going to set our image index to be equal to 0 for animating purposes, and of course that's where the case ends. Now it's for the rest of the cases it's similar plug and chug. The coordinates are going to be different. So from here on out it's basically the same deals with it. They work a little bit differently for different cases, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste in each case one at a time from my reference code here. Just so you can see. And I'll explain through it. So when we're running, we can only aim straight or up. So vertical aim is equal to 1. We're going to have proj equal to our creating instance dependent on these coordinates, and it works similarly to for straight shots as it does up here. But we don't set our image index equal to 0 because we don't want to reset our running animation. And from there on out, it's basically the same for jump, landing, and wall jump. But there's a special case with wall jumping, which I'll get to here in just a second. I'm just going to quickly copy and paste all this code in here. So, fix that really quick. So here is the case for jumping. If you want to quickly pause the video for a second, this will deal with any shots aiming up, aiming diagonal down, or straight. And again, we're not resetting our image index. Real quick, here is the case for landing. Even though it happens for a brief second, we just want to have it just for convenience and efficiency. And then for wall jump, because it is a similar case, because we're facing the opposite direction, even though our image X scale is 1 when we're facing to the left. So it all works the same, but instead of positive C, it's negative C. So if our image X scale is 1, that means we're facing to the left. That being said, we need to fire our projectile 17 pixels to the left, for example, instead of 17 pixels to the right. And then similarly for our diagonal shots. Instead, though, we switched our if-else conditions for our image X scale around. So if our image X scale is -1, that means we're facing to the right, and we need to set our post direction to 0. And then similarly, when we're facing to the left, we'll set it to 180 that way. End the statement, and that is our switch done here. But we're not done with this new script just yet. There's a couple more lines of code we need to add here. So if our angle is not equal to 0, and for any diagonal shots, and our angle is not equal to 180 degrees, we need to set our pros direction equal to angle, whatever that is set to. And then of course we'll animate the player, call our other script for argument 1. And argument 1 is our case, because we'll be typing in the same cases here. These are the exact same cases for our animator player, so it should animate just nicely. Alright, so with that out of the way, there's that. And this line of code here just saves us from having to write this statement all in each of these vertical aim cases. It's just nice and easy, nice and consistent, nice and tidy. So now we got that. We also need to update a couple other bits and bobs of code in other places. So we need to go back into our X-based controller and go to our animation end action here. And in here we need to find our landing case, and we need to fix this, because we're gonna have it. So when the player is idling and we're aiming, his X buster is going to be shot out, and we're not shooting. It's just going to be, it's like it's drawn, like it's just aiming straight, ready to fire. What we want this to do is just when we land, we want to switch to that case where the image index is a specific number without having to reset the animation. Because if we land and then our image index is 0 here, it's going to act like we shot a projectile even though we didn't. That being said, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to get rid of this, and I'll probably retype this here in just a minute, but we're going to say if aim is not equal to 0, so if we are aiming, what I was talking about here, we're going to set our image index to 10. Otherwise, we'll safely set our image index to 0, and then we'll animate the player of idling. Okay. So that's done there. Now we need to head over to our animation handling controller here. And then we need to rewrite this portion here, idling the player. So in this condition here, we need to add, making sure we're not checking the index of wall jumping, because we get stuck in, because from my testing earlier, when we do the aiming system, we for some strange reason get stuck in on the wall, and we don't jump off, and it messes everything up. So with this, it should hopefully fix that. In here, so this statement is okay, but we need to add a couple more statements now. So if we can aim, and aim is not equal to 0, and our shoot timer is equal to 0. This is like what I was talking about with the player drawing its cannon. If we check our index of idling, so if we are idling alone, we'll animate the player idling. So we're setting the sprite indexes equal. We're setting our sprite index depending on what or whatever our case is here, and we need to rework this case here, and then we'll set our image index to 10. And here's where can aim becomes false when we're not hitting move, because when we're up against the wall, we need to hold down our move keys to stay attached to the wall. Otherwise, if we let go, we'll kind of do a little jump up and we'll fall straight down. So in your move is equal to 0 statement, below here I'm going to make a comment saying follow the player when aiming and letting go of the wall. So if check index wall jump, and if aim is not equal to 0, here's what we're going to do. We're going to set our image X scale to be negative aim. So if aim is -1, we'll face to the right, because we were on a wall that's to the right and we were facing to the left. So we need to basically flip our image X scale around depending if it's positive or negative. So if it's -1, it'll be reset to 1. If it's 1, it'll be set to -1. And then from there, here's where we set can aim to false. And then our aim will be then set to 0. We'll have a wall jump timer of 6, so we'll have plenty of time just to jump off the wall, and we'll set wall jump to be false. Our image index will be set to 18, and then we will animate the player of idle. The reason I say idle is just to switch the animation from idling to jumping in a frame, and you probably won't see it if it's at 60 FPS. And that should do it here. So now what we need to do is in our X-Buster controller, because we redefine our script of Firebuster, we can clean this up and make it more compact. Because in the Firebuster code, we are already animating the player, so we don't need this here. But here's what we're going to do. We are just basically going to go boop, and then we'll do this down here in just a minute. But here's what we're going to do. So if check index idle, we're going to Firebuster B, which is our local variable here, which is our projectile, and then our case, which, as I've mentioned before, this already takes care of all the coordinates of where the projectile needs to be launched from, and we don't need to be doing any extra bits here. And if it isn't obvious, what we can do from here is just copy all this in for our other cases really quick. Set this to run, Firebuster at the case of run, check index of jump, check index of land, and then of course check index of wall jump. Similarly, Firebuster for a jump, Firebuster for land, Firebuster for wall jump. It's that simple, and that's it. What we need to do really quick is copy these over and highlight our original code here. Boop. Do that. Do some indenting here really quick. And then, last but not least, you probably know what's going to happen. Bloop. And that's it. Going to select this chunk and tab or indent in just a little bit more. But we're not done yet, because if you notice in our check index script, we're only checking indexes for all of our straight shots. So unfortunately, we have to do a little bit of grinding here just to make all of our code run nicely. So in our idle case, we're going to also add or sprite index is equal to shoot du sprite, or sprite index is equal to shoot dd sprite. Du stands for diagonal up and dd stands for diagonal down, just a disclaimer. For our run case, we need to add checking indexes for our run shoot du sprite, and then also checking indexes of our run flash du sprite. We don't need to worry about dd because there's not. I don't have the sprites for that. We need to do the same for the other ones really quick, so I'm going to quickly bust through these. If you've got all the sprite files from the image that I've supplied in the description, I'm gonna time lapse this here in a second, but you need to do cases for jump shoot du, jump shoot dd, jump flash du, jump flash dd, and then the same thing for wall jump shoot DU, DD, wall jump flash DU, DD. Land will be land shoot DU, and then land flash DU. On your mark, get set, go. And time. Hopefully you got all these down. You can quickly pause the video really quick in case you need to get these last check indexes here. And then, yeah, that's it. But we also need to get the animate player here, but just give me a second. I need to get some reference code for this really quick. So in our animate player script, there's not much we really need to change, but we need to now add in conditions if we are shooting or just aiming at the same time. So we're going to go through this one by one. I'll try to be quick because I'm pretty sure this video is over 30 minutes now. I apologize in advance, but yeah. So we're going to... First thing we're going to do is we're going to make multiple statements in this condition here. If charge timer is greater than 0 and aim is equal to 0, we're going to set our sprite index to be our blast sprite. Else, if our shoot timer is greater than 0, or our aim is not equal to 0, here's what we're going to do, because there's more than just setting our sprite index to be our shoot sprite here. So if our vertical aim is equal to 1, we'll set our sprite index to be our shoot DU sprite. Else, if vertical aim is set to -1, we'll have our sprite index to be shoot DD sprite. Otherwise, then we will set our sprite index to be our shoot sprite here. But further down the line, in the same condition here, if aim is not equal to 0 and image index is greater than 10 and shoot timer is equal to 0, we'll set our image index to be 10 so we can hold this position here. Otherwise, we'll just set our sprite index to be idle sprite, and then we'll break. And then it's basically similar plug and chug with the others, so I'm going to go ahead and do time lapses. We're full of time lapses today, but hopefully it should be fine. Ready, set, go. Okay, a lot of code, I know, I apologize, but like I said, this is where things start to become very complex. I'll go ahead and just pause it. You can go ahead and pause the video here. I'll be changing it here in 3, 2, 1. Pause again. 3, 2, 1. And this should hopefully settle all of our animating cases from here on out. Now, it's the moment of truth. Did I do everything correctly? Everything should be all correct, and if I get any errors, we'll quickly diagnose them and see what's up. So far, we seem to spawn in just fine, and bang, uh-oh. NX vertical not set before reading. If vertical is equal to -1, okay, it is in our animate player script. I think I forgot to say the words vertical aim and not... Yep, here it is, right here. Let's try again. There we go. So as you can see, we still have our little lemon shooter, and we can charge up and then blast it. Now, if I hold down the aim right key, you can see that he aims. But if I let go, Yeah, I wish I could make it so like he puts his buster away before he goes back to idling, but that's just something I have. It's a little hard because I mean check index animate player might be a little bit flawed, but if I hold this and then shoot, you can see that his image index resets and he kind of does a little reload effect, and I kind of like that. Now if I hold the aim up key, you can see he is aiming up, and if I shoot, you know he shoots at an angle. But I think as we can also see, our if you take a look closely at the projectiles, you can see they're not facing the right direction. And I think if I aim this way, okay, they're shooting at the right direction. It's just the way that they're facing is incorrect, and you can see they're facing the wrong way now. But everything else seems to work. If I run, we can still shoot like this, and if I run and hold up, we can still shoot diagonal up. Same thing for all of our regular shots here. I mean, we'll fix that bug, that visual bug, in a second here. I'm just showing you the demonstration really quick. Now, one thing I do want to check really quick is wall jumping here. So if I let go, perfect. That's kind of what we want. But it seems that we need to do something really quick. Oh, here's another bug. I can't seem to aim anymore. There must be something I forgot. Okay, so let's take a look here. Okay, so my silliest of apologies. I think I know what we're missing here. So in our mid-air based animations, did we run off a ledge, or are we stuck in a wall? So, or are we leaping off and aiming off a wall and aiming? So here it's simple. We just need to check in our index, because like I said, if you noticed up here, I set the anime player to idling, but since we're not place meeting with any like floor or anything, it's not animating correctly. So all we just simply need to do in this check index right here is just say check index idle. And what this should do is just set our image index to 16 and jump, and our animation should be reset from there. So now if I run the game and check that part again, it was doing the correct thing I wanted to, it's just aesthetically it didn't look correct. And I seem to have lost aiming capabilities for some weird reason. So if I hold the cannon out, let go, okay. It's doing the right thing, but now it's just not... I can't seem to aim anymore. So somewhere in here we need to. Oh, actually, I think it's in a timer. So let me go check again really quick. So if I set in our wall jump timer, when this is set to 0, if I set can aim to true, that should fix it. Because like I said, we disabled our aiming capabilities when we leap off a wall like I just did, and then when the wall jump timer is 0, we should be able to aim like this again. Yes, perfect. There it is. Okay, cool. So it gives us that minute to like switch our indexes around so we're not stuck in a wall, because I mean if you see here in the code, depending on what our image X scale is, it will be moving us around in our wall jump timer. So that is working perfectly now, and we can continue to whoa, something wasn't right there. Maybe, okay, that's correct though. Okay, very weird, very weird. But as you can see, all of our other indexes are working. That's funny, I don't remember that happening. Okay. That's always got to debug your code, and of course with all this being a Let's code, that's what I'm here to do. So let's go ahead and fix that really quick. I think I found the culprit. I forgot to get the sprite index for, we're in our check index script, and we were supposed to check to see if our sprite index was equal to our wall jump / du sprite, or sprite index is equal to wall jump / dd sprite. My embarrassing apologies. We're so close though. So now, if I go up here, bang, there we go. That's what we needed to see right there. Perfect. So now we can shoot all of our projectiles, and of course we could charge up and we can shoot them, and of course you can see we can get our bigger lemons too, don't forget. And let's go ahead and wrap this episode up by quickly taking care of that angle issue. And it's just really nice and simple. All we need to do is go into our master controller of our weapons in here. Nope, not here. Come on. Yeah, so the master controller here. And in our step event, we need to do this. Our image angle is just going to be set to our direction, which we have already defined by the angle variable, and we should see that they animate, or they should face the correct direction. So if I aim up, boom. Yep, that's working. And of course, when I aim over here, we're not seeing any backwards facing projectiles anymore. It's nice and flush. So they also seem to be colliding just there in the corner. We'll have to maybe work out some better collision checking. But other than that, so if you've been up with this series so far, I appreciate you guys for watching it thus far. Be sure to check out the rest of the episodes, just in case if you're lost or confused, you have any questions, go ahead and put down in the comments. But other than that, guys, that's going to conclude it for this episode. I have been Kaden and Nighthawk, and I will see you guys later.